Okay. Call this meeting to order. Allegiance. Thank you all for attending tonight. Will the clerk please take attendance?
Councilmember Tilton Byrne is absent this evening. We have 6 council members present, Mr. Mayor.
All right. On to item 3. Item 3 is the approval of the agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Would City Clerk please call the roll?
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Avery.
Aye.
Duran. Aye. Niemeyer.
Aye. All right. On the open forum, item 4. In order to provide equal access to all during the open forum, each member offering comments during the open forum shall not exceed the allotted 3-minute period. Your time to comment has expired when the red light on the podium appears. No further comments may be made by a member speaking during the open forum after the red light appears. That being said, is there anyone that would like to come before us in the open forum?
Good evening, Council. My name is Jeanette Gibbons. I live here in Brookings, South Dakota. Brought a little promo with me for the new movie coming out. Well, not actually so new. It is starting July 3rd here at the Cinema 8 Theater called Sounds of Freedom. Sound of Freedom. And so I've been following some of the interviews that are being done by the producer as well as Jim Caviezel, who stars in this. And so I pulled off an interview this afternoon, and this was a description that came with it. This came from a post on Twitter at the account called Sparta Justice. War on our children, child trafficking, pedophilia, grooming, transgender, rape, torture, ritual sacrifice, organ harvesting, abortions, and adrenochrome, all happening to millions of innocent children led by an elite group of pedophiles. Netflix and Amazon refused to expose this. The Sound of Freedom was filmed 5 years ago. And a strong effort was made to make sure this film never reached the public's eyes. Amazon and Netflix refused to show this movie years ago. This delay in the movie has cost the lives and freedom of millions of innocent children who are trafficked every year. The United States is the #1 consumer of child sex in the world. Mexico is the #1 provider. 60% of all child pornography consumed in the world is produced in Mexico. U.S. Health and Human Services whistleblower testifies under oath that 85,000 unaccompanied migrant children are being trafficked for sex and labor through a sophisticated network that begins with recruiting in home countries and ends when HHS delivers the child to an unchecked sponsor who could be anyone. She goes on to testify that the United States government has become the middleman in a large-scale, multi-billion-dollar child trafficking operation that is run by bad actors seeking to profit off the lives of innocent children. Live child trafficking video footage from the U.S. border shows this horrible truth. Over 2 million innocent children every year are trafficked and sold for sex, rape, and torture. Why has child trafficking become the #1 criminal network in the world? Because obviously there's a demand, and it's growing. And because unlike a bag of cocaine, which can only be sold once, a child's little body can be sold by the minute and up to 20 to 30 times a day. What if this was your child being brutally raped over and over again? These children are suffering the worst type of life on earth. We must all fight this war and be soldiers, soldiers for the children who need us, to rescue them and give them their lives and freedom back. And if you want to know if it's a problem in South Dakota, right now we have 42 missing children on the missing people in South Dakota. Actually, no, 42 people of those 27 are under 16, 16 and under. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to come up and speak to the council?
Hi, my name is Kerry Bingham. I'm from Brookings, South Dakota, and I just had an issue, some concerns. Dear members of the Brookings City Council, tonight I address you with concerns regarding the recent policy that prohibits the use of inflatables and recreation items such as dunk tanks on city land. While I understand this was put forth as a policy by the city manager due to apprehension regarding liability, I would like to emphasize the importance of maintaining inclusivity and accessibility to our community events. My interest in the matter began when I was planning an event for friends and families of the clients of my small business. The fine print on the contract to reserve the public space included language letting me know I would need to seek approval from the Director of Parks and Rec before setting up an inflatable or a dunk tank. Upon speaking to the Parks and Rec Department, I learned of the recently enacted policy. My concern then extended beyond the barbecue to thoughts of not seeing kids in bouncy houses or athletes having the chance to dunk coach for fun at events I've come to recognize as adding a lot of color to the summer landscape of Brookings, events like the Uncle Sam Jam and the Downtown at Sundown. As a city that prides itself on diversity and inclusion, it is crucial to consider the potential implications of regulating activities that were previously available to the public. By limiting access to inflatables and other forms of recreation commonly found at summer community events solely to those that can afford private rentals, we risk creating a divide between those with means and those without. This goes against the very principles that make our community vibrant and welcoming. Allow me to draw your attention to the analogy of a public pool. A public pool is a vital part of any community, providing a space for all residents, regardless of their socioeconomic status, to come together and enjoy a shared experience. The city assumes a degree of risk and liability in operating and maintaining the pool, but it ensures that this recreation is accessible to all, rather than becoming exclusive to the wealthy and the privileged few. Similarly, by accommodating the inherent risk associated with inflatables at community events, we promote equal access and allow families from all walks of life to participate in these summer activities and traditions. It is through these inclusive experiences that we foster a sense of belonging and strengthen community bonds. I urge the City Council to consider alternative measures that address liability concerns without completely eliminating inflatables from our community events. Collaborative efforts with event organizers, insurance providers, and other relevant stakeholders can help identify strategies to mitigate risks while upholding the principles of inclusion and accessibility. By embracing the responsibility of managing risks associated with public activities, we ensure that our community events remain a reflection of our shared values. Let us demonstrate our commitment to diversity, inclusion, and the well-being of all residents by finding a balanced approach that allows for the continued presence of inflatables at community celebrations. Thank you for your consideration. I appreciate the opportunity to share these concerns with the City Council. I'd like to ask that this topic be brought up for further discussion. Together, we can uphold the spirit of community while addressing legitimate concerns about liability. Thank you.
Anybody else like to address the council in open forum? Okay, we'll close that. Thank you all for your comments. Consent agenda, approval of the consent agenda. Are there any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on any of the items on the consent agenda? Council have any questions, comments? Please call the roll.
Specker,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Duran,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Rasmussen.
Aye.
Okay, Erica here tonight? Okay, we'll have a mayoral proclamation for Park and Rec Month. Mayoral proclamation. Whereas Parks and Recreation promotes health and wellness, whereas Parks and Recreation promotes time spent in nature by increasing cognitive performance and alleviating illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's. And whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for activities designed to promote active lifestyles. And whereas Parks and Recreation increases economic prosperity through increased property values, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. Whereas Brookings recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now therefore be it resolved that I, O.P.G. Niemeyer, Mayor of the City of Brookings, do hereby proclaim July as Parks and Recreation Month. Go ahead. You got something you're gonna say?
I just want to accept this on behalf of the Parks and Rec Board. Thank you very much, and we appreciate the opportunity that the council provides to support the parks and all the recreation activities here in Brookings. Thank you.
You want a photo? Oh, come back up. I think we have to do a photo op. All right, we don't have any change orders or contracts this evening. Public hearings and second readings. Item 8A, second reading and action on Ordinance 23-019, an ordinance authorizing amendment number 5 to the 2023 budget. Ashley Wrench, our senior finance.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. This is the second reading of Ordinance 23-019, authorizing Amendment Number 5 to the 2023 budget. This ordinance increases our revenue budget in the Capital Improvement Fund by $32,293 to account for the receipt of national opioid settlement funds. Capital Improvement Fund expenditure budget by $40,116 to purchase a mobile command center for the police department. This has been identified as an approved use of these funds. The settlement funds are intended for opioid remediation efforts, and the mobile command center will be used to facilitate prescription drug return programs within Brookings County and will be a resource for centralized opioid training of area first responders. Additionally, the mobile command center can be used at various community events, and approval of this ordinance supports the city's strategic initiative of a safe, inclusive, and welcoming connected community by investing in the opioid remediation presence at community events. No changes have been made since the first reading, and staff recommends approval of this ordinance as presented. That'll stand by for any questions.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any public comment on this item? Does council have any questions, comments? Councilmember Wendell?
About the mobile command center. Will it be for like the drug return programs? Will that be exclusively staffed by police department, or are there other partner agencies that would be a part of that program?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we're endeavoring to do is partner with the law enforcement agencies first, but also get involved the treatment and preventive staff from the hospitals and the different mental health and health facilities to be able to do this, because it's not just a matter of right now the sheriff's department is who collects it. So when you have bags of drugs at your house that were legally prescribed and they're left over, you can only go to the sheriff's department in Brookings County to turn them in. This, we can do them in more locations with more support and volunteers from different agencies to be able to recover that stuff. Because as you know, it sits around there and then it can fall into the wrong hands. And when you're waiting for somebody to just come by the sheriff's department to drop it off, we want to be able to go out, work with other agencies, and be able to recover the narcotics and the opioids that are hanging around there that were legally prescribed for people and that are no longer used. Yes, sir.
Councilmember Dern?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With availability of Narcan expanding after July 1st, are there any thoughts of more community outreach to get Narcan with businesses and organizations and kind of training using that too?
Yeah, so we actually, endeavored and partnered with the Department of Health and Mental Health and Department of Social Services on that, of being able to, at some future point, be able to actually distribute naloxone through that program using this mobile command trailer. And what we would like to do is be able to set up where there are certain demands and needs for that, whether it be the hospital or Walmart or different districts within the city of Brookings and also the county of Brookings, where we can make naloxone more readily available. And that's one of the things that falls under the proper uses for it with the treatment and the prevention. So it's something that we're looking into. I can't promise you we would do it in year one, but it is something that we endeavor to do in the future with the partnerships that we'll form with it.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Please call the roll.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery,
Aye.
Duran,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Rasmussen,
Aye.
Specker.
Aye.
Okay, on to item 8B, public hearing and action on Resolution 23-058, a resolution to amend the 2040 Comprehensive Plan's future land use map. Mike Struck, our Community Development Director.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. The action item before you tonight is Resolution 23058. It's for a comp plan amendment, and there's actually two areas that are included in the comp plan amendment. One is in the Timberline addition. This is overhead here. This is a process that had started last fall with the developer had submitted a rezoning request and preliminary plat and realized that they needed to go through a floodplain development permit process. So they ensued upon that process where they started filling of the area and grading it, got the elevations established, and then went through the letter of map revision through FEMA and went through that process. It's now since been completed. When you look at the future land use map in this particular area, the pinkish area represents open space floodplain area. Since they went through that floodplain development process and have since removed the property from the floodplain, it seems reasonable to the developer to submit a request to amend the future land use map to identify that area as medium density residential development so that they can proceed forward with residential. You can kind of see dotted line kind of split through that portion of the cul-de-sac. It's the area to the left of the screen that was in the floodplain area. And so they have since elevated the land in that particular area. And if approved, there's a rezoning request later this evening for first reading. And then as it proceeds to the second reading, there'll also be a preliminary plat that will come in conjunction with the second reading of the rezoning ordinance. And that's where you'll get into the details of the elevations of the lots, and we'll be able to share that information with you at that time. The second request is on the other side of town near 20th Street South and 22nd Avenue. The developer acquired 3 small parcels from the Western Estates Mobile Home Park. They're shown on the map on the right, outlined in red. And when we were working with the consultants on the comprehensive plan update back in 2017 and 2018, we had conversations with some landowners, and at that time the interchange project was still kind of working through, all the details that needed to be worked through. It wasn't approved yet, and the consultants were like, well, it makes sense when we look at the existing land use, the zoning map, that we should probably leave this area identified as residential for the time being, with the understanding that if this interchange project comes to fruition, there's going to probably be a higher and better use of the land, and we're going to see over time that the property owners are going to want to change the land uses. And so at that time that it occurs would be the appropriate time to amend your comprehensive plan, the future land use. So they're proposing in those couple of areas, it's like a manufactured home court designation on 2 of the areas and partially on the 3rd on the east. Also, the eastern portion is partly in the open space floodplain. As you may recall in previous discussions, when they did the development suitability model, any property that fell within a floodplain was automatically given a numerical rating of 10, which is the most severe. FEMA has been going through the process of updating the floodplain maps for Brookings County. The preliminary maps are available, and it shows this area, the floodplain, significantly receding in this area. And we were able to use the best available data on the interchange project, and we've been allowed to use that in this area as well. So with that, preliminary floodplain maps receding and not showing that area as in a floodplain anymore, staff felt it was appropriate to come forward with a future land use map amendment area in there, as well as the manufactured home intensity, which would support a future rezoning to a commercial type district. With that, it does come as a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission, and the Development Review Team supports both future land use map amendments, with the one in the Timberline addition on the west side of the community did come with a recommendation that the lowest floor opening be a minimum of 2 feet above the base flood elevation. With that, I'd stand for any questions you may have.
Avery,
Aye.
Duran,
Aye.
Niemeyer, Rasmussen,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Mayor, council members, and members of paperwork for this temporary application has been submitted, reviewed by staff. Staff recommends approval. Let me know if you have any questions.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Avery,
Aye.
Duran,
Aye.
Niemeyer, Rasmussen,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Wendell.
Aye.
Mayor, council members, and members of the public, this alcohol application, staff, all required documentation has been provided and reviewed by staff. Staff recommends approval.
So moved.
Move.
Open the public hearing on this item. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, hearing is now closed. Does council have any questions, comments? Please call the roll.
Duran,
Aye.
Niemeyer,
Aye.
Rasmussen,
Aye.
Specker,
Aye.
Wendell,
Aye.
Avery.
Aye. All right. Item 9A, introduction and first reading on ordinance 23-00020. An ordinance establishing the number of video lottery machine placements in the city of Brookings, South Dakota. Bonnie Foster, our city clerk, will present this item.
This ordinance would provide the ability to establish the number of video lottery authorizations on population. The ordinance would allow for 27 current authorizations per our population of 23,377. These 27 authorizations are the existing on-sale licensee holders for malt and wine licenses, along with one inactive license. There was one that we did not include on the study session. So if you're wondering why that number increased, we have one inactive license out there that holds the ability to add video lottery. Is unrestricted, so that is not included in this number 27. The ordinance proposes additional authorizations to be granted with every 1,000 population increase. I stand by for any questions you may have.
Bonnie, is there any public comment on this item? Council have any questions, comments? I have one, Bonnie. Now that you've brought that inactive one up, if that one was to get bought by somebody else, would that transfer then?
The video lottery authorization, yes.
All right. Councilmember Rasmussen.
I don't know if you're able to speak in front of the city for additional video lottery or anyone else engaging the city looking to get more.
We do have that one from Deuce's Casino. They wanted to add a fifth suite to their location. They have applications on file for an on-off malt license, an on-off wine license, and the video lottery authorization. That was tabled back in January.
Thank you, Bonnie. Next reading, the second reading will be on July 11th. Okay, item 9B, introduction and first reading on ordinance 23-022, an ordinance to change the zoning within the city of Brookings, Lot 2 in Block 9 of Freeland Edition. Mike Struck, our Community Development Director, will present.
Members of the council, ordinance 23-022 is a rezoning in a location north of the Highway 14 bypass, Interstate 29. The current zoning of the property is an I-1 light industrial district. They were proposing a B3 heavy business district. The B3 business district and the I-1 industrial district are very, very similar in the uses and intensities that are allowed. The main difference with the B3 is it does allow the use of temporary storage units as a use within the district, where the industrial district does not allow temporary storage units. The comprehensive plan identifies this area as a business park industrial area. These properties in this particular location have been platted for a number of years. There is an unimproved right-of-way up in this area, but they're platted properties that have access easements to get across each other's property to serve them, and they're requesting the rezoning to a B3 to allow them to potentially have some storage units up there along with some contractor shops. This does come to you as a unanimous recommendation, and the development review team supports the rezoning request. I'd stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mike. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, does the council have any questions, comments? Thank you, Mike. All right, item 9C, introduction and first reading on ordinance 23-023, an ordinance to change the zoning within the city of Brookings. Outlots 2, 3, and 4 in Government Lot 4 in the northwest quarter of Section 9, Township 109, Range 49. Mike Struck, our Community Development Director.
And members of the council, this is a rezoning request that is part of the future land use map amendment that you approved a couple items ago. The legal descriptions are kind of difficult to follow, so if you look at the zoning map on the right side of the screen, there's 3 areas that are outlined in red. The area along 22nd Avenue is currently zoned R3A and is being proposed to be rezoned to a B2 district. The other 2 areas are proposed to be rezoned to a B3 district, and they would be combined with the larger parcel that you see that is currently zoned B3. I can't speak on behalf of the intentions of the developer, but looking at the pieces of property that are acquired, I believe the easternmost one is pretty much being acquired to serve as a buffer yard. There's existing trees there. When you have a business district up against a residential district, there's buffer yard requirements. So, for example, the parking lot in a B3 district would have to be 20 feet from that residential property line. The structure would have to be set back 30 feet. And then they have to provide so many trees and so many shrubs per 100 lineal feet. I think that's kind of the intention there on on the east side is to take advantage of the existing vegetation that has already been planted. And the unique shape of the middle parcel kind of lends itself to probably be incorporated at some future time for some drainage improvements. The B2 provides an opportunity along 22nd Avenue to gain some additional frontage and look at some commercial opportunities in this area. This does come to you with a unanimous to rezone the properties from the R3A to a B2, and then the other two areas to a B3. And the development review team supports the rezoning request as well. I'd stand for any questions you may have.
Item. Seeing none, council have any questions, comments on this one? Councilmember Specker.
Plain maps.
Yep. Okay, so the floodplain map on your left is that's in place, the blue area. And so you can see in that particular yellow highlighted box, it's approximately 170 square feet of floodplain that protrudes into that particular area. The map on the right is the preliminary floodplain maps that FEMA has put out for comment. They're in the comment period right now. And you can see where that floodplain significantly recedes in that vicinity of the map on the left. Pretty much is non-existent now in the map on the right. So what they do is they used LiDAR data, and so use the imagery to get fairly accurate elevation readings. They look at any particular improvements that the city may have made since the last floodplain map updates, any projects that have developed in those areas to look at, where is the water flowing, and you can kind of see it based upon the LiDAR data, which is elevation data. And so there's been some changes. I would say the LiDAR data is probably a little bit more accurate than the historical means that they used for floodplain mapping, and so that's why you've probably seen the most significant changes. And then the interchange project is in that vicinity as well, and so we know that some of the grades have changed as well.
This particular project, but on other properties, are we considering the updated FEMA maps or the existing maps when deciding whether this is a floodplain?
So we've had some other projects that have come up where the preliminary floodplain maps have been, trying to think the best, more intense than maybe the previous ones. And we have utilized those. And the primary reason for that is it changed from a floodplain to a floodway. So we asked those projects to go through the process of a no-rise certificate, and to the greatest extent possible, needing their engineer to provide that information that anything that they were to do on site wasn't going to increase the rise of the water flow through those areas during events. And so they followed that process. It's not a requirement until they're officially adopted, but they agreed to work with the city on that just to protect themselves in the long-term interest so that in the future nobody could come back to them and say, well, you did this particular project and you put a little bit of fill in and now it's causing problems downstream. And so they went through the engineering process to determine that there was no significant rise based upon the improvements that they made to the site.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mayor. Maps. When does the comment period close, and when do we anticipate they may be adopted? Or do you have I'm sorry.
Period closes on the preliminary? Is it this fall? Yeah. Probably approximately about 3 more months until that period closes. I feel like it was early to mid-fall maybe, but we could certainly find out that date and communicate it to you.
I was just kind of curious if we had a sense of how long we'd be looking at them as preliminary versus when we anticipate they may be adopted.
You know, we've struggled with that because, you know, as staff, the preliminary maps have been available to us for some time. And we've been working with FEMA on some of the areas that were questions. They were released to the public, I believe, was that in April-ish, I think? April? Yeah. What was interesting is we were allowed to use these maps for the interchange project because it was the best available data, and so we did not have to go through the floodplain development process for the interchange project.
Okay, thank you, Mike. On to item 9D. 23-024, an ordinance to change the zoning within the city of Brookings, lots 1 through 11 in block 28 and Timberline addition. Mike Struck will also present this item.
So, ordinance 23-024 is a rezoning request in the Timberline addition for 11 lots in block 28. The request is to rezone from an residence R1D and to an R1C, or I'm sorry, rezone from an ag and R1D to an R1C zoning. And so this was part of the comp plan amendment that was on your agenda earlier tonight. This is the area you can see overhead. The area has been graded, it's been elevated. Part of the rezoning request is to clean up some potential split zoning that would come about when they get to the point of the preliminary plat and final platting stage. And then they're just also looking at what is kind of the appropriate zoning in this particular area based upon the urban medium intensity. They felt the R1C provides that nice point. Here's another example of the two floodplain maps. So the one on the left is the current one. You can see that it kind of cuts through the cul-de-sac. That's the part that they went through the floodplain development and the letter of map revision. The map on the right shows the 100-year and 500-year. So the 500-year being in the yellow and the 100-year being in kind of the brown color. They have went through that floodplain development permit process as part of the rezone. They also have a preliminary plat that they've submitted, but that will come after the second reading if approved, then the preliminary plat, and that shows the grading and the elevations. It does come to you as a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission. The team supports the rezoning request with the condition that the lowest floor opening elevation is a minimum of 2 feet above the base flood elevation. With that, I would stand for any questions you may have.
On this item. Council have any questions, comments? Councilmember Specker.
So the amount of land that was raised, is it being taken out somewhere else?
I don't believe so on this one. So they went through the floodplain development process, removed it from the floodplain. Their drainage has already been put in place. This development started several years ago, and so just to the west of, well, okay, you can see West 16th on West Road here. Their drainage runs kind of parallel to West 16th, and so they've basically done their entire drainage for the entire development, and so there really isn't a lot of, I guess, area to add storage without altering their drainage plan.
Okay. Anyone else in council? Thank you, Mike. And, we have no other business. We do have the progress report. Deputy City Manager, present that.
At least for one or two more times until I enter retirement from the progress report and hand it off to our esteemed assistant to the city manager, Sam. This is the June 2023. Go ahead and congratulate all of our department heads. We've been working very collaboratively on putting together the draft 2024 budget. At this point, we've gone through and had all the departments update their operating and capital budget requests. We're formulating our revenue projections for this upcoming year. We've concluded our initial meetings between the budget team and each of the departments, and we're at the stage now of kind of seeing how it all comes together to formulate that 2024 budget. Some of the upcoming items we'll have in the coming months include property tax levy ordinance, the budget work sessions for city council and members of the public, the adoption of the capital improvement plan, as well as the fee schedule, and then the official readings of the budget ordinance. Moving into public works, great progress is being had on the projects across the community. Continue to encourage members of the public to visit that brookingscommunityconstruction.info webpage, where we have the latest information on detour routes, project timings, and so on and so forth. This week, we are also going to be adding a map on there of our overlay areas for this upcoming year, so there's additional information being added to that on a continuous basis. The I-29 interchange, currently paving of 20th Street South and the ramps, which is nearly complete. We are still on target for July 2023 and planning a ribbon cutting event for the opening of that in August of this year to celebrate all of the work and effort that has gone into that project. 22nd Avenue reconstruction continues. Eastbrook Drive to 8th Street South is closed. They are currently completing water main and storm sewer, expecting paving to start here in the coming weeks, and the target for that completion is November of this year. Sidewalk repairs are complete at this time, which is exciting to see. 20th Street South, the water main is complete from Tanberry to 22nd Avenue, and like 22nd, we expect the paving down there to start in the coming weeks with a target date of November of 2023. University Boulevard has had the construction begin. We will have a two-phase approach there, with this year being phase one, which is road work from just east of the roundabout to approximately 850 feet west of 22nd Avenue. And then in 2024, the road work will be on University Boulevard and up to 22nd Avenue to Innovation Campus. Chip seal project for this year will be in August of 2023. And then the overlay, as I mentioned, we'll be having those maps going up yet this week on the construction webpage. The Dakota Bank Center lot has been paved, and we are targeting the completion of the overlay in November of this year. Stormwater Master Plan has a target date of presentation in August of this year. The 6 Mile Creek study has been pushed back to June of 2024 due to public works staff working with FEMA on those preliminary map updates in that area. Floodplain Development Ordinance looking to bring to council in late July, early August of this year. On the Solid Waste Division side, there's the leachate vault construction. At this time, the survey has been completed and the construction start is pending final state review. Target completion date for that project is August of this year. The leachate force main project is in the conceptual design phase. Target is to have plans completed yet this year and then go to construction between 2024 and 2025. Number of studies and reports are underway in the Solid Waste Division. The master plan has a finalized draft, which is in review, with a target presentation to City Council of August this year, and a master fill plan, which is also underway with a target completion of October this year. Street Division is in the process of replacing thermoplastic throughout the community. Target completion for that is September. The winter operations plan, which guides our snow and ice removal efforts, they're going through an update process for that plan, which was originally adopted several years back. The target is to present the updated plan to City Council in the public in September. Motor grader was delivered. There's a picture there on your screen of the nice new motor grader that we received in June. The workforce housing project on 15th and 7th, which was supported by the city, is showing some exciting progress as well. This is a mixture of 2 and 3 bedroom units, varying in 1 to 2 stories. In total, there will be 20 units split between 6 to 7 buildings. Prices are ranging from just under $190,000 up to $225,000. It is restricted to those who make 115% of the area median income. The listing agent for those is Anita Thomas, so anyone interested in potentially purchasing one of these units would encourage them to reach out to Anita and Best Choice Real Estate. The first 3 buildings are currently being completed. A few of the units there within are actually under contract already. The project is progressing east. I had an opportunity to drive by today and watch those foundations being poured. The sod has been installed and the access drive is complete for those first few buildings on the west side. Parks and Recreation received final approval of a $125,000 grant from the Land and Water Conservation Fund for pickleball, and the McClemens Park Playground renovation has been completed, and it was opened late last week, much to the delight of residents in that neighborhood as well as throughout the entire community. Number of highlights from the police department. There were 11 candidates who took the recent examination for the corporal position. Brookings was ranked South Dakota's second safest city, according to safewise.com. Detective Dana Rogers was awarded the Optimist Club Officer of the Year. The police department received a UTV. This event will be utilized at outdoor events to include Downtown at Sundown, Hobo Day, and parades, as well as provide better access within our parks and trails system to those who may be needing assistance. We had over 190 kids participate in the annual bike rodeo. The first session of Safety Town was held, and we had 220 participants. Safety Town is an early childhood safety education program designed to introduce all types of safety conditions to 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. Summer reading program is well underway for the library. They've had 860 registrations for children, 97 for teens, and 115 for adults. The library did receive a Public Library Association grant in the amount of $6,000. A total of $1.27 million was provided to 200 public libraries. The library intends to use that $6,000 to purchase additional laptops and tablets and associated programming there within. We also want to thank the Public Works Department as well as the Parks Department to help rearrange the young adult section of the library. Dakota Bank Center held 17 event days in June, and they hosted the Got Milk Gala, which brought in 240 guests. We want to provide a reminder about the Mayor's Awards nominations being due for the Human Rights Commission, Historic Preservation, Sustainability, Disability Awareness, the Generational Leadership Award, and the Mayor's Inspirational Award. The due dates are available on the screen before you, and we would encourage anyone to contact the City Clerk's office if they have any more questions or want to inquire about submitting a nomination for any of those awards that will be held later this year. And lastly, we've got several events coming up yet this week and early next week, promoting the Transportation Fair, which is hosted by the library in partnership with a number of our city departments as well as other agencies. That'll be held on June 28th from 9 to 11 a.m. at Cadoodle Way. The fire department will be holding a training center open house and ribbon cutting event on June 29th from 5:30 to 6:30. That'll be down at the training center site next to the Dakota Nature Park at 1519 32nd Street South. And then, of course, the annual Uncle Sam Jam will be held at the Dakota Bank Center on July 4th from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? All right. Go on to next meeting's agenda. Currently, we only have just ex officio reports. We have one contract change order that will be coming up, and then the second readings on things that were presented us tonight. With that being said, is there any council members that would like something to be brought up in the future meetings? All right. Councilmember Rasmussen.
Thank you. Would it be possible, study session per se, but like just a report on the inflatable decision and kind of like the reason for the changes for the city, maybe some of the options we explored, and then the rationale for the final decision, just so like we as council and then members of the public who are kind of just hearing about this have a little bit more information about the change in policy.
Okay. Well, can we future agenda? Okay. All right. We'll just have that written, read at the next meeting. All right. Anything else? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming.